my name is Hannah. Welcome back to my channel. I have some books that I am very excited to talk about, so let's jump right into it. The first book that I want to talk about is a recommendation from Melinda at A Web of Stories, so I will make sure to link her channel down below. And this book is called An Elderly Lady is Up to No Good by Helene Turnston, and it is translated by Marlene Delargy. And this book was so delightful, which is funny because the subject matter is an old woman who's basically on a killing spree. And this is like a collection of stories, but they all go together about this woman who is killing people. The way that it was written and the way it was put together, I just was delighted the entire time going through this book. And so I really enjoyed it. If you just want something, I mean, nothing too deep, nothing too much, but it was just a really fun, quick, light, delightful read. Kind of irreverent. I mean, it's about murder, but I really did enjoy this one. I ended up enjoying this book enough that I picked up the next one, which is An Elderly Lady Must Not Be Crossed. So I'll let you know what I think of that one, if it holds up and is as good as the first one on my next video, but so far, I'm just enjoying it. It's, you know, kind of brain candy, but also about murder. So really enjoyed this one. Thought it was really well done. Now, this next book was a recommendation from Scott over at Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. And this book is called Jasper Jones by Craig Silvey. And Scott recommended this because it is a book that is talking about Australia. And I do think that this really captured a time period, some of the racism and societal problems in a specific time and place, and I thought that it really did a good job about this. It is following our main character, Charlie, and he is woken up by Jasper Jones because Jasper has discovered a dead body, and it's kind of everything that happens after that. But, you know, honestly, this book wasn't anything super different. It did capture that like time and place, but if you think coming of age novel, anything you think about a coming of age novel, that's what this is. It's nothing against a coming of age novel. That can be a really good trope sometimes, especially when there's a little twist on it or something. But this kind of ticks all those boxes, every single coming of age box. So it's not to say that the writing wasn't good or that the time and place weren't interesting to read about, but it's, you know, something traumatic happens in the small town. The boy is going to grow up and become a man, and through figuring out some of these things, he's gonna see some of the harsh realities of life, maybe get a girlfriend in the meantime. There's just so many of those coming of age things that I feel like I've read this book so many times. So it really did check off every single coming of age box. That being said, it was well done. I just wasn't really excited about it. Everything in it, the ending, everything, how it came together, none of it was, wow, I didn't see that coming. It was all a little predictable. So if you want the template for a coming of age novel, I think this was it. It was very following along on those kinds of things. But overall, I did enjoy this book. I enjoyed my time with it. It just wasn't anything that was groundbreaking or is really going to stick with me in the long term. Now, I picked up the book, The Third Chimpanzee, The Evolution and Future of the Human Animal by Jared Diamond. This is my third Jared Diamond book, and he does a good job. It's well researched. It's talking about exactly what the title says. It's following the evolution of humans and how we have become self-destructive in a lot of ways and what the future holds. And I think that it was really well done. It was really interesting. I enjoyed my whole time with it. I picked it up even though I wasn't really in the mood for this kind of book, and it still hooked me in and dragged me along, and I enjoyed it. So if you want just a good nonfiction that goes through the history of humanity, I think this is a really good option. Overall, I just really enjoyed it, and there's so many little facts and just interesting things about the development of language and the development of weapons and the development of genocide, just all these different things that we somehow think are uniquely human, and kind of trying to pick it apart and say, is this what makes us human? Or do we see this in other animal species, and how has it developed and changed over time? And so overall, I thought it was a really interesting look into this subject, and yeah, highly recommend. If you like Jared Diamond, it's very pop science kind of books, and that can be really effective. It gets a good point across, you learn a lot, and they're well done. So this one, honestly, is probably one of my favorite Jared Diamond books. Well, out of the three, it might be the best one that I read. Okay, so this last book was a recommendation from Shelly, the amazing Shelly Swearingen, and I will make sure to link her channel down below. And I picked up the book Women Talking by Miriam Toews. Now, this is a novel. It is talking about the imagined aftermath to some real life events. So in Bolivia, there was this actual group of Mennonites where the women were waking up covered in bruises and not knowing what had happened, and the town leader said that it was devils and that it was the women's fault, and then it came out that it was actually a group of men going through and drugging and abusing all of these women in their homes. So horrible, horrible subject matter situation. This is following the aftermath. What are these women going to do? Are they going to stay in this community? Are they going to have to publicly forgive these men because that's what is expected of them? Are they going to leave? What would leaving entail? What kind of ramifications will this have religiously, spiritually, and logistically? I think it's very interesting. And all it is these women talking. Now, the subject matter is very interesting, and the way that it was told was not my favorite. So the reason I didn't like the way that this was told is it was told as minutes from these meetings of these women as they're trying to figure out what to do. And the minutes are taken by a man. So the reasoning in the book is that none of the women have been taught to read and write, and so they have to have this man to take the notes because they want their meetings to be official. Now, I don't know what the author was trying to really do by having this told through a man's perspective, but I do feel like a book specifically about women talking, to have a man be the narrator, feels off to me, and I couldn't quite figure out why it had to be told as minutes from a meeting, because it wasn't just direct minutes. It was the narrator had some journal entries and had his own plot going on. And in that case, why couldn't this just have been told from the perspective of these women? And why did we have to have a man see it through the lens of a man? Does that make us care about it more somehow? I don't quite get that, the author's decision to go that route. So that was a little bit weird for me, but subject matter and the discussion the women had, I thought was really interesting. But here is my big complaint, and I think this is the second time I've done this year, so it's my fault. This isn't the fault of the book. It's me. I'm the problem here. But I got to the end of this book. I went to go mark it on Goodreads, and I read this book in 2019. Completely forgot. I read the entire book and had no recollection. Now, there are two reasons. One, I was pregnant in 2019, and so I'm not responsible for how well my brain retained information during that time. I don't know. So that's my excuse on that. But also, I do feel like for a book with this kind of subject matter, it could have been written in a way that would stick with me a little better. And so it's not to say that the book is forgettable, it's just that I completely forgot it. And yes, circumstantially, it's my problem, but I feel like it might say a little something about the book, you know? I don't know. It's probably just me, but it leaves me a little less inclined to like the book because I read the entire thing and I never had one moment where I said, oh, this sounds familiar. I wonder what's gonna happen. No, nothing, not a hint that I had read it until I went on Goodreads and saw, oh, you already read this in 2019. So take that with a grain of salt. Obviously, it's my problem. But yeah, and that is the second time that I have done that this year, which I haven't done that before, but in the past year, it is the second book that I've read all the way through and then found out that I'd already read it. So apparently I have the problem. But I would be interested to know if you've read this book. Did you find it memorable? Did you get something meaningful out of it? And what was going on with the man being the narrator? It is a book called Women Talking. And why does there have to be a man who tells us about it? So that left me a little bit, torn on it, but overall interesting. And I can really see where the author was coming from in wanting to write a book about this and feeling like these were important subjects to discuss. And that is everything that I have read in the past week or so. If you have thoughts on these books, please leave them down in the comments down below. I really love the discussion. I love hearing what you have thought of these books and what I should read next. So I will be back in another week or so with a book wrap up. So I will see you all on the next one.